Mhm. So hello, hey, my name's Shelley. I am the program coordinator for Prevention Works. We are a coalition in Clallam County to support parents, and we do training. We do lots of work with other agencies, and we are happy to provide this class funded by the Albert Holler Foundation, and Rachel Hardies is our speaker, and this is the second of 2 4-series classes that we've done. We had the first one in February for younger kiddos, and this one now, and they're all on our website. So I invite everyone to visit. I'll put the links in the chat, but I'm just going to get it started because we want to keep this short because we realize time is valuable. And so go on, Rachel.
Okay. And as I was putting tonight together, I was like, oh my goodness, there is so much. This is so many big topics for this age group and so many areas we can explore. So I put together, kind of continuing from last week, what seemed to make sense to me. But if topics come up and questions come up, we can explore those and or put them into next week or the week after. Because really, I want this to be about what you're interested in. I'm sharing what I see come up a lot in my office and what I help parents with, and everybody's so individual. So we have the ability to be flexible with what we talk about. And so it felt a little overwhelming preparing for tonight. So we'll see how this goes. So yes, welcome to class 2, Up Your Parenting Game, talking about how you can support yourself and in turn support your family. And like last week, we're going to start with, last time we started with getting our witness in play, which was an exercise in helping us tune into ourselves and what's happening within our bodies, our minds, and our systems. And so today we're going to start with another body awareness activity. And this one is a centering exercise that I am reading out of a Trauma-Informed Yoga, a toolbox for therapists. So I'd like to begin by focusing on centering your attention in the present moment. Feel free to have your eyes open or closed, whichever way feels better to you. Feel your feet on the floor or whatever they might be touching. Notice your bottom on the chair or whatever might be supporting you. Feel the support of the floor and the chair under your body. Notice your breath. No need to make any changes. Simply notice that you are breathing. And then notice, are you breathing through your nose? Are you breathing through your mouth? Are you breathing slowly or quickly? There are no right or wrong answers here, simply observations for you to make. If you feel like it, and if you aren't already, try breathing through your nose. And notice the pace of your breathing. And now start by counting the length of your inhale as you breathe in and the length of your exhale as you breathe out. Let it be without changing it. Simply notice what is. Does your breath seem irregular? Do you notice a pattern emerging? And remember, there are no right or wrong answers. You simply are gathering information for yourself about yourself. So for example, if you are inhaling and then exhaling for a count of 3, maybe try inhaling and then exhaling for a count of 4 or something similar. So that means breathe in, 2, 3, 4, breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Feel free to keep breathing as you are and simply notice that you are inhaling and exhaling. So breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. Notice that you are here now, present with your breath, present to this experience. Bring your attention to your feet. And now to your belly. And now to your heart. And to your head. Breathe in, breathe out. If you've closed your eyes, open them slowly and orient yourself to the room. And notice how you are feeling in this moment. And if you'd like, think of a word or a phrase that you would describe how you are feeling right now. Just for yourself. Okay, thank you, everybody. So that's another example of an activity that can help you regulate, right? That can help you connect with your body and create some balance in your system. And so I invite you to practice this throughout your day. So welcome. This is the second of 4 classes. Like Shelley said, our next one is Monday, April 25th, and then Monday, May 2nd. And as I say those, I hope I got those dates right. We meet for an hour. You're welcome to put questions in chat. I will pause and invite questions. And class 1 is up on the Prevention Works website. But you do need to sign up for each of the next 2 classes. And anybody who's attended all 4 will be put in for a drawing for a prize at the end, as well as everybody attending each time will be sent a prize as well. And like I said before, if we don't get through everything tonight, we'll move it to our next class. And a reminder that this is my invitation, that new information might feel uncomfortable. I might say things that might elicit a sense of shame or guilt, or you might feel bad about. That's not my intention. This is information. And once we have new information, we can do better going forward than maybe what we were. Please be curious. And a lot of what we talk about requires practice when we talk about regulating and co-regulating, and we'll talk about empathy and attuning and our thinking, and all of these things take practice and time to notice and time to do differently. So I wanted to do a quick review because we did a lot of information last time. So the first thing we talked about was that there are 4 situations where our nervous systems will perceive a threat. And this is based on the current idea that the function of our nervous system is to be constantly scanning our environment for safety or threats to our safety. So I just lost my place. There we go. It's all about survival, really, is what biology is about. And so then we have real threats to our well-being, real threats to physical safety, real threats to emotional safety. And then we also have those paper tiger threats that we kind of that maybe aren't truly about survival, but do elicit our stress response. And they feel threatening because our system can't always tell the difference. And so it's going to activate us. And so for kids, this can be math time in class. It can be reading out loud time. It can be, a last minute change in plans, as well as for us, it can be those kinds of things that create a perception of threat. And so we went through that there were 4 situations that we can conceptualize as threatening from synergetic play therapy, with the first one being physically and emotionally unsafe. The second threat happens when we perceive an incongruence in our environment. So for those of us with teens and tweens, it might be that, they appear angry and we might check in with them and they might snap back at us that they're fine. And so that's not really congruent, not really going to match. And so we might have a reaction to that. And then the third threat is when we face unknowns, and we've had a lot of unknowns. And that's where when we can plan ahead, or we can, if our kids have time with difficulties with transitions, we can let them know, here's kind of the plan of the day. Although things are really changing quite frequently these days. So the unknowns threaten us because we tend to put scary stories on them. or upsetting stories or a bad outcome or something like that. And so it's that causes us to have a reaction. And then the fourth thread is when we put shoulds or shouldn'ts on ourselves or others, because that in essence is saying we're not okay the way we are, things aren't okay the way we are. And that doesn't fit, that doesn't feel good. And generally there's not a lot we can do about something that should have happened or something that shouldn't have done. We can do better going forward. So then our nervous system stress response, a reminder, there's no judgment on this. This is how we're built. At least right now, this is what science thinks, that this is how we're built. And so going back to our nervous system is always scanning, right, for threats and safety. And if we think there's a threat, and so last time we talked about like attack cats or runaway cats. So yes, there's a threat. I'm going to run away. Oh no, I can't get away. I'm going to fight. I'm going to be mobilized in this fear to do something, as opposed to when we feel safe, we can be mobilized by connection or curiosity. So if we can't run away, if we can't fight it, we might freeze, which is still a very activated place in the body, or we might collapse and shut down. Yeah, there's a threat. I can't run away. I can't fight it. I'm probably going to die. So I'm going to shut down. And the body will start to shut down processes. And that's being immobilized by fear. Some of this we see in teens, like we talked about, like they've got their hoodie over their face when they wore masks. I'd have kids that would come in, the hoodie's down, masks are up, and the hair's forward. And so I could barely even see their eyes. I actually passed a kiddo like this. So I coach middle school track and field. And I passed a kiddo on my way into track today who blazing bright orange hair sticking out of a black hoodie and a mask. And I couldn't even see their eyes in there, but somehow they could see to walk. So obviously they weren't collapsed or shut down, but there was a bit of hiding in there. So then there's safety cat or connected kitty. And this is the kitty that wants to sit on your lap. And if there's no threat and no challenge, this is where we might be mobilized to play. We might be mobilized to get things done. We can be mobilized to rest, eat, be caring, connecting, be curious. This is where we meditate, we do yoga, kind of within, I think of it as a bit of a continuum, and within like the middle range is response, nervous system responses we can stay on top of. And when we get outside of that middle range, we get more into those places where we cannot stay on top of the experience and we're saying things we regret, or we're behaving in ways we regret. So we learn to notice those. We learn through regulation and connecting with ourselves to expand our ability to be on top of a broader range of experiences. So we have, then that's in this way, you can be a behavior detective for your youth, right? You can observe them, notice and be curious about, well, what are their behaviors saying about the state of their nervous system? Do they have their head down, hood up, and they're on their arms like this at the table? Are they talking to you? Are they making eye contact? Are they looking at the floor? Like all these things we do can give us insight. And you can check it out to see if you're right or wrong. So like I said, regulation then is that ability to be in the intensity in our body in an experience without trying to shut it down or avoid it. And like I said, it's part of a continuum, and we want to improve our ability to move towards and be in this intensity we feel in our body so that we can be self-aware, so that we can still connect with our kids or anybody around us, but so we can still connect. And that's why I'm giving you these examples of practices as we go through, because they help you reconnect, they help you come home to yourself, they help you notice what's going on, like whatever phrasing works for you, but staying connected to yourself so that you can connect with your youth. And life gives us many of these opportunities each day to reconnect with ourselves. And again, it's okay if you dysregulate. It's okay if your experience gets the best of you. It's okay to then apologize and repair our relationship. And that's really good modeling for our kids too. And sometimes, I think we talked about this last time, but for various reasons, we might have difficulty being aware of what sensations are happening in our body. And for some people, depending on their history, their bodies aren't a safe place to be. So hopefully a good place to start practicing is to bring curiosity and awareness to what does it feel like that when you need to go to the bathroom. And I like, and how do you know that you have to go pee or that you have to go poop, right? They feel different. We learn to differentiate those. And so I invite you to bring like even more curiosity or more focused intention to, how do you know you have to go to the bathroom? How about hunger? How do you know you're hungry? Does hunger feel different at different points in a day, or feel different if you go longer without eating? And what about, how do you know that you feel tired or that you feel sleepy? So these are physiological needs that come up throughout a day multiple times that give us an opportunity to practice just noticing what's happening in our body. And then you can bring up the question of, how do I know I feel angry? How do I know I feel sad? Or how do I know I feel happy or excited? Right? We have these labels for what these energies feel like in our body. So you can bring awareness to them for yourself so that you can help your kiddo bring awareness to it for themselves, which then is that co-regulation piece. It's offering our groundedness, our connectedness to another, and in this case, our kids, to help them reconnect with themselves. Does require one person who is regulated or able to regulate or able to pause and come back and regulate. And so it's a practice for all of us. And that's why I spend so much time on understanding our nervous system and our perceptions of threats, so that we can do better at regulating ourselves in relationship with our kids and modeling it for them. That's how they're going to learn. Like, how are we showing our kids how to deal with anger? Because they are going to do what we do way more than what we say to do. So it is that I just always like and kind of hold myself to, am I being the adult that I want my son to be? And that helps me check in, that helps me ground and regulate in some of those moments. So modeling it. And so, for example, if I'm starting to get upset with him, I tend to breathe a lot. That's how I tend to regulate. And so I will take a breath. I will make it somewhat noisy so his system will hear it. And then his system might hear it. He might take a deep breath, but without me having to say that maybe he could take a deep breath, because just doesn't work. I've been there, doesn't work. So I do it and hope that it activates, or hope that he doesn't. And at the very least, it activates the breathing pathway in his brain. And he might take a breath, or eventually. And at the very least, I've regulated myself in that moment. So I can still connect. I can still listen. I can still hear. I can still attune and help keep our discussion or our conflict at that moment from getting worse. And I will just tell you, I do not do this 100% of the time. I have definitely dysregulated. I have definitely said things I regret to my son, things I've had to apologize for. Definitely felt frustrated, because it's a practice. And sometimes we're going to be better able to do these things than other times. So if I'm well rested, well fed, and feel pretty on top of things, I do a great job interacting with my son and helping him manage whatever experience he might be happening. But if I haven't eaten recently enough, or if I'm feeling stressed because things are feeling overwhelming and out of control for me, so I'm dysregulated, I do not bring my best self to our interactions. And that's okay. It's okay, because I'm a person and he gets to see that I'm a person, and then he gets to see how I apologize and we repair and we make it up. So there's no pressure. I don't want anybody to take on pressure that you have to be a perfect parent with all of this. It is all a practice, as well as how our kids are constantly changing. And so it might have made sense the other day to be a certain way or respond, but it is not going to make sense today. And so another way sometimes when I'm interacting with my son, well, with anybody, is I'll just explain what's happening in my body. Like, wow, my stomach just got really tight right now. Oh, my shoulders are up to my ears. And then I do something with it. And that invites them to notice what's happening in their body and notice their thoughts, as well as regulates you. So I'm going to pause, because that's just a quick review of last week. Any questions or thoughts or anything since last week, and with any of that tonight? You can speak.
Well, I was just going to say that last week I was doing this and I lasted 7.5 hours before I flipped my lid.
Holy cow.
And this morning I lasted 20 minutes. So, but it was Monday morning, right? So yeah. And then I just kind of pulled it back together. But I will say that my 10-year-old, when I name how I'm feeling and I'm like, I'm starting to feel my stomach, that actually makes her mad when I start doing that.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Because you're making her inadvertently making her or covertly making her connect with herself.
Yeah.
And she
Yeah.
might not like that. Yeah. But right, a prime example, we can have a great day and then have a much shorter, they call it the window of tolerance. And so our window of tolerance fluctuates depending on what we're experiencing. Yes, thank you. Great example. And you're human, and so it's okay. Okay, so I thought this was, I liked this. So Robin Goebel is a parent educator and a therapist, and she's very much operating from the same principles that I learned through synergetic play therapy and interpersonal neurobiology. And so I thought this was great of how responding to our kiddos' dysregulation with our co-regulation could feel like we're holding on to a ball of fire when what we really want to do is grab that fire extinguisher and put it out and make it stop. Right? We want to do that, but that's not going to serve our situation. So I thought that was funny today. Okay, here's another one of those ease keys and ways to help us practice connecting with ourselves, releasing tension in our breath. And so I love this one. I do this one a lot with in session. I think I was doing it with the track team, or at least when I had a group of the track team, because the jaw is a really common place that we hold our tension. Right? So when we're stressed, when we're uncomfortable, we might clench our jaw, we might be clenching our fists. I know my shoulders tend to get tight and go up. And so relaxing our jaw tension is a gateway for ease and releasing tension through our neck, our chest, and our abdomen. And so for many of us, a yawn or a sigh activates the relaxation response in our body. So this one is called Relax Your Jaw and Find Your Ah. And we're going to start by yawning. And it doesn't matter if it's real or pretend. Just drop your jaw, feel the heaviness of your lower jaw and the weight of gravity. Feel the softness of your cheeks and your jaw. And breathe and then find your ah or a sigh. Just let your jaw fall straight down. Ah. And that makes me want to yawn. So what the body wisdom is sharing with us is that yawning is good for us because it activates that relaxation response. It opens space in the back of our throat so we can take a deeper breath. So go ahead and we'll do 2 more breaths. Breathe in, big deep breath, get that tummy to pop out. And let yourself sigh and ah on the way back, way out. Let's do that one more time. Breath in, feel that rib cage expand, feel your ribs go out to the side and back. Then ah, bring it down, bring it out. And observe your neck and your jaw and your breathing. So that's one you can do really quickly. If you feel the need, if you feel like you're starting to disconnect. So then we have thoughts, right? So we've set the groundwork with our nervous system, using our body to let us know what's going on. And then we have what we're telling ourselves. And that's one of my favorite ways to phrase it is, what is my mind telling me? Because that allows me to have some space. But even back in Shakespeare's time, right? There's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so, says Shakespeare. And what we're starting to realize through all the different wisdom traditions, different theories, that there really is a consensus that what we tell ourselves has a tremendous impact on how we experience our lives and how we respond or react to different situations. It also has an impact on how we're interacting with the people around us. So we notice our body sensations and we also notice what our mind is telling us. And there was one presenter, Trevor Moawad, he was a mental strength coach, which gave me the idea. That's cool. I didn't even know that existed, but I want to do that, doing that. And he said that what we tell ourselves 10,000 words a day. in our heads. Like, da, 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 da. If your heads are like mine, they're pretty busy places. Da, 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 da. And so what we want to do is learn to take control of those thoughts, to notice those thoughts and let go of the thoughts that don't serve us. Because our thoughts are not always accurate, just like our emotions might not always be based on accurate thinking. Our thoughts are often interpretations of what has happened, or we're creating meaning from somebody's behavior that might not actually be true. They might be our beliefs, our opinions, and oftentimes we feel very threatened if someone challenges our beliefs and our opinions. And so it is a practice to notice, well, what's going through my mind, and pausing to ask. Byron Katie came up with, oh goodness, she's an author. She wrote a book, and she has a process for questioning our thoughts. The one thing that sticks in my mind and that I use the most is it true? Or sometimes I'll change it to, is it really accurate? And it's a way for me to check in. What am I telling myself? Is it true? And so I invite you to notice what are you thinking about your kiddo? What fears come to mind about your kiddo? What stories are you telling yourself about their future or their behavior or how things are going to go? And then think about how that impacts how you interact with them. So this is another place there. This is a place where we have a lot of control with practice and totally depending on what's going on for us, our thoughts. So then I like this one too. There's a lot of research. Oh, and I think there's even a formal name for it that I'm also not remembering at the moment. But if we change how we see people, then it changes people. And this is also this idea, I might mention it later, that people will rise to our expectations of them, or they will drop to our expectations of them. So if you look at your kiddo and you see them as like kind of our stereotype of surly teenager and this and moody and this and that, that's a lens that's going to have you responding a certain way. If you look at them and think of them in terms of, wow, there's an amazing amount of development going on, they've got a lot to manage in their body, you're probably going to respond to them in a different way. And so changing how we see people, noticing what are we thinking about them, how are we labeling them in our mind can help us. It's just to take it, is a step towards helping us interact. So this is a thought triangle, and we have the big blue arrow that says activating event or situation or circumstances. So something happened, and in this instance, maybe your kiddo said they would promise their friends they'd come to a party, and maybe because you're a mean parent, you said no, and so they can't go to the party. Or maybe something else came up, but they can't go to the party, but they promised. So now their head's going to be filled with these thoughts of, oh my gosh, I've let everybody down, or oh, they're going to be so angry with me, or I'm not a good friend, I'm awful, I suck. They can go down this rabbit hole pretty quickly, being worried, especially because they're worried about what their friends think of them a lot of times at this age. So then they're having these thoughts, and they're going to withdraw from their friends, or they might avoid their friends because now maybe they're feeling ashamed or they're embarrassed. But now there's going to be a behavior that comes out of those thoughts. So that's the head part, as well as then we have the heart, or the feelings, the emotions and sensations in our body. So this might be where they feel bad. Maybe they've got swirly, twirly tummy. They feel guilty. Maybe they feel some weight. And they just get locked into this, and it activates the stress response. And in this case, the stress response would go towards the collapse cat. I'm going to withdraw. I'm going to avoid. It's too overwhelming. I can't face that challenge. So I just want to pause. I see a chat. Are there any questions? Oh, thanks, Summer. Any questions or thoughts about thoughts? Okay, well, you're welcome to chat them in. So let's continue. Oh, I like this one too. So Dan Siegel is a big name in interpersonal neurobiology. I think he's one of the founders of it. And interpersonal neurobiology is this idea of how our nervous systems interact with each other through every interaction with every person in our lives. We're just designed this way as the thinking. And this is the idea of treat people as if they were what they ought to be. And we help them then become what they are capable of being. And I don't know if you've heard, there was some research done oh, hey, it's been a while now, where at the beginning of a school year, they had 2 different classes, and some researchers went to teachers and told those teachers, these are gifted students, and these are your general ed students. And they found by the end of the year, right, the gifted students were doing better than the general ed, but it turns out they weren't gifted students at all. They were randomly assigned to these 2 classrooms, and it was all about what the teachers were expecting and how they were interacting with them. So there was really a lot of power within how we're thinking about people and what we're telling ourselves about them. Yeah, always and forever, Summer. The current thinking. So how long do mirror neurons mirror each other? Always and forever. So there are some disagreements within the research around the system, it does, and what it's meant for, why we have it, but it's in all of us all the time. Yeah, good question. Yeah. So our thoughts, right? What our minds tell us. What do we tell ourselves about our youth? How do you label their behaviors? How do you think about their future? So I thought we'd pause and we'd take a moment to do, in the realm of athletics, there's a lot of mental rehearsal. It used to be like visualization, and we've learned more about it. So we think of it more as mental rehearsal and more taking in the entire situation. So I'm going to invite you to turn your attention to an interaction. Actually, let me back up. Before we go there, I'm going to have you pause and notice what's happening in your body right now. Is your body supported by what you're sitting on or laying on? Notice the sensations. Is anything tight? And if anything is tight, what does it want you to do? And one thing you can do is like deliberately tighten and relax. That helps release the muscles a bit. And notice your breathing. I'm just wanting you to get a baseline for where you are right now before we go into this mental rehearsal piece. So notice your breath. Because what I'm going to have you do is gently with yourself, breathe if you need to turn your attention to an interaction with your youth where you felt frustrated, angry, or sad. Preferably something that happens repeatedly. And in this instance where you didn't respond the way you'd like to. So just pause, kind of start to think about something like that. I know for me, helping my son get out of bed in the mornings is a repeated difficult interaction that we have. So as you remember this situation, pause and notice the environment that you're in. What did it sound like? What were the sounds when you were going through this situation? Were there any smells? And with that simple act of starting to remember, I want you to pause and check in with your body sensations. Is anything different from when you checked in before you started imagining that? Does your body need a deep breath? Do you need to adjust your posture or stretch? Just check in, notice if anything's different. So I'd like you to return to the memory and breathe and notice what thoughts go through your mind. So you're in that environment, you're imagining the interaction. What were you telling yourself at that time? What are you telling yourself about your kiddo? What are you telling yourself about you? What's happening in your body as you have those thoughts and as you're going through this interaction? So just notice. And again, I want you to pause and I want you to breathe. I want you to check your posture. I want you to notice if there's anything going on with the stress response in your body. And if at any time this is overwhelming or uncomfortable, please do what you need to do to take care of yourself. Drink some cold water, maybe stop the imagining. Imagine like, I don't rainbows and butterflies or some relaxing thought. So what we're going to do now is I want you to kind of like rewind the interaction in your mind or go back to the beginning. I guess we don't rewind much anymore. Start at the beginning. And this time, I want you to imagine yourself pausing and checking in with yourself before you act or speak in the way that you didn't like. I want you to notice what you're telling or notice how you could tell yourself something different in that situation. So maybe you need to take a deep breath. Maybe you really need to like press your hands together. This is these smaller movements are ways we can regulate in front of the teens without looking extremely goofy. You can press your hands together. Maybe you can notice a name for yourself, like, oh my gosh, my tummy's starting to get tighter and tighter and tighter in this interaction. If it was feeling tight, maybe take a breath and roll your shoulders and keep going through this memory with you interacting in the way that you wanted to. Let the upsetting thoughts flow from your mind. Imagine yourself tuning into your youth's words, their body posture, their vocal tone and facial expression. What are they showing you? What were they showing you in that moment? What were they saying to you? And notice, maybe imagine this situation, this interaction completing in a way that you feel good about, with controlling yourself, not that you can control your youth. So you can imagine them like, I don't know, being wonderful and giving you a big hug and smiles and everything's great. And sometimes that happens. But more, I want you to focus on you imagining yourself going through this situation in the way that you feel good about. And that may or may not impact your kiddos right in that moment. And then when you're ready, take a breath. Let yourself breathe deeply. I see somebody was noticing their breath became shallow. Yeah. If you're willing to chat or unmute and share what that was like, that would be great, or what you noticed. I'd love to hear it. We might have some minutes at the end where we can stop the video if anybody wants to share. Oh yeah, go ahead, Michelle.
When I noticed my frustration with my child, it was with my teenager, but he's my youngest of 4. So, and he's 16, but my breath just, when I was remembering, it just started to become shallower, just like, going through the motion, kids' emotion, dealing with his grades and dealing with school and getting to school and doing those motions through school and hearing from his teachers. And the question is, what are you going to do about it? And so it was frustrating to me because they come to me before they go to him. And then it's, I just started, that wells up, and I told him I'm frustrated with this situation because he wants to be able to self-advocate, and so the frustration is, it just starts to build until I'm like, I'm going to step away.
Yeah, which is great. It's great to step away.
Yeah, I usually have to.
And that's great. Absolutely okay. To be able to then maybe take those deeper breaths, right? Because once we're breathing shallowly, we've indicated to our system that we're threatened, right? We're not in a safe place. Excuse me. And there's ideas that deep breathing, belly breathing, helps our system know that, oh, okay, we're safe, because we can't belly breathe if we're in an unsafe environment. So yeah, right. So you're like in the middle, right? You're pushed and pulled between these two.
Yeah.
It's great that you notice that. And then you do, like, does it help you to pause and take a deep breath in that moment? Or is that where you need to step away and like take a deep breath? And
if I've gathered my thoughts, I can. A lot of times what I'll try to do is, I'm learning this through time because he's different than my other kids, was just, if I say something and allow him to talk, he will share, and then I can gather my own thoughts, take a deep breath, then reiterate what I heard, and then go through there. But then if he starts to keep going and going, but I'm like, okay, I gotta let me go away, let me come back, let me think more, and then we'll try again, because he's 2E, he's highly capable in 2E kids, so it's kind of a tricky. He uses words that I oftentimes am like, the average person. So
yeah, which is, it's so challenging. And you bring up a great thing that so within synergetic play therapy and within interpersonal neurobiology, there's this idea that that we set each other up to experience how we're experiencing the world. So that's one of the ways that like play therapy works in the office, is when kids come in, they show me how they view themselves in the world by how they're interacting with me and how they're interacting with the toys. And teens do this too. Teens are, I'm just wondering, like teens are very good at putting us in a position of feeling really inadequate, really awkward, dumb, content, like roll an eye, like how dare you even breathe, get out of the space, right? Because that's what they're experiencing. Like that is so much of what they're experiencing, and they're really good at creating these situations where we get to experience that too. And so you could think about like how much of what you're experiencing might be similar to your son, and then you can name how icky it feels to make mistakes, or icky it feels to be wrong, or gosh, I feel dumb, or whatever it might be. And so that can be another curiosity to bring in, is how through this interaction are they showing us what they're experiencing? And when we can name that, so that's the gift for us to then regulate and co-regulate, is to name it, bring it into the room, show them what to do with it. Now it doesn't have the power because we've pulled it out and we've looked at it. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes, totally.
Because I can't describe a teen that I've never felt awkward or uncomfortable around.
I could say, I thought, he's my fourth. Like I have a 19-year-old still living at home, and my 16-year-old, and one's a girl, one's a boy, and different dynamic. Like I thought, oh, I've got it down pat. It's great. No, they're all different. So
yes, exactly. Thank you so much for sharing. They're all different every day and moments through the day too. Yeah, lots of adaptability. Thank you. And let's see. Oh, and then yeah, absolutely. Speaking out loud, I think, is tremendous for our kids. Yep. Around everything, and hoping that we're speaking out loud in a positive way. Like the example that comes to my mind is I tend to leave the house forgetting at least one thing almost every time, and that started after I became a mom, and I don't know, anyway. So I leave and I pull out into the out in the road, and generally by that time I'm like, oh, I forgot this. And rather than getting frustrated or God, I can't believe I forgot it, oh, I'm so dumb, or going down that rabbit hole, I've really consciously been able to go, wow, I'm so glad I remembered so close to home. So I can pull right in and I can just go get it, and it's no big deal. And in that way, taking my son all the way through that experience and regulating it, and it helps me regulate too. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, when it's kind of this idea too, and I love this example, sometimes I'm not sure it fits, but if I were to say to all of you, don't think of a banana, that's probably the first thing that comes to your mind, because you have to think of the banana to then not think of the banana. And it's that same idea. If I'm with somebody and I mention my tummy or my shoulders or my jaw, the chances are pretty high that they're going to be checking in with theirs too. And in that way, you're helping to regulate them. Because I guess I experience through my work more often than not, even with kids, even with little kids, 4, 5, 6-year-olds, I'll say something and I will get back, yeah, me too. Sometimes with teens, you get a grunt and a shoulder shrug, but that's where they are. But for the most part, and they'll definitely let you know if you're wrong. But yes, regulating out loud, naming how we know we're feeling mad, like kind of becoming a narrator of our own lives, our own internal experience, so our kids know that it's there, because otherwise they don't know. And this isn't always comfortable. I certainly didn't grow up doing this. I've had to come to this as an adult, and which is great. We can all learn, we can all change. That's what's also really wonderful. But sharing our internal experience out loud can sometimes be really vulnerable, and is definitely not the norm. But yeah, exactly, Summer. That's a great, yep, exactly. So attunement, this is part of what I call being near, which is an attentive play practice that we'll talk about next week, that we'll talk about teen appropriate play, attentive play. But attunement is a really big part of that, because it's a really important part of co-regulating. it's the act of listening intently and paying attention to the details of what they're telling us, which means being present. It means making sure we're not spinning out in the rabbit holes of our thoughts. It's about noticing how your body and mind are responding to them and what they're doing, and allowing your responses to show them that you're present to them, that you're listening and you're really attending to them or tuning into them. And it allows yourself to recognize the mood and emotions that they might be showing. And this is challenging, again, why we're talking about regulating, because if you're not comfortable with anger, you're not going to let your kiddo have space for anger most of the time. You're going to try to shut it down. We're going to pull out that fire extinguisher and make it stop rather than holding the fire. And so that's where we learn to increase our window of tolerance, to be able to stay on top of more of an experience so that we can give them that space. It is to be cautious about telling them how they're feeling. I know we tend to do it a lot when they're younger. Teens are probably going to, disagree sometimes just to disagree. But you can use wonder statements. I wonder if you're feeling really frustrated about that, or, oh, I see your face is down. I wonder what happened, or I wonder if you're feeling sad. And then that creates space and opens opportunities for discussion. I also sometimes think it's easier, or I found initially anyway, it was easier to wrap my mind around attunement kind of by talking about what it's like when it's not there. And so I plan when we're doing this in person, I think we're going to break into pairs and do this, but right now we'll just talk about it. So have you remembered a time that you were talking to somebody, maybe even your kiddo, and they were not responding? Like they're in front of you, maybe they're just looking at you. There's no head nods as you're talking. Maybe there's no eye contact. No, none of these things that we use that help us know that, oh yeah, they're paying attention to me. And so think about that and how that felt. And I imagine you might have stopped talking or gone to somebody else because that didn't feel very good. Or another thing I've had happen that's an example of misattunement is where I thought somebody was making a joke and I would laugh. And then I'd look at their face and realize very quickly they're not laughing. And think about if you've done that, how quickly you stop laughing, right? And attune to their emotional state. And I know I sometimes tend to feel something, I feel like a tightness in my gut, or, oh, no, and really start to tune into them. Let's see, so I see a chat question here. Oh, thanks, Jelly. So the other thing we can do is we look at what's called the still face experiment. And this is really powerful. This can be a somewhat emotional video. Nobody gets hurt, nothing bad happens, but it's uncomfortable. Even all the times I've watched it, it still makes me uncomfortable because I want to attune. And I invite you to think about how this applies to maybe you and your interaction with your teen. So I'm going to make sure I've got sound. So Edward Tronick from University of Massachusetts conducted this research on moms and infants. I think this was in the 60s or 70s. And I was looking him up the other day, and he's still working, still in this field. And so I want you to get your witness in play as you watch this. Maybe state to yourself, practice naming to yourself what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and then notice if you need to take some deep breaths. Maybe you need to kind of close your eyes for a moment. So let's go ahead and watch this. It's about a minute, I think, minute and a half. Oh, 2.5.
Babies this young are extremely responsive to the emotions and the reactivity and the social interaction that they get from the world around them. This is something that we started studying 30, 40 years ago, when people didn't think that infants could engage in social interaction. In the still face experiment, what the mother did was she sits down and she's playing with her baby, who's about a year of age.
I'm like a girl. Oh.
And she gives a greeting to the baby gives a greeting back to her.
Yeah.
This baby starts pointing at different places in the world, and the mother's trying to engage her and play with her. They're working to coordinate their emotions and their intentions, what they want to do in the world. And that's really what the baby is used to. And then we ask the mother to not respond to the baby. The baby very quickly picks up on this, and then she uses all of her abilities to try and get the mother back. She smiles at the mother. She points because she's used to the mother looking where she points. The baby puts both hands up in front of her and says, "What's happening here?" She makes that screechy sound at the mother, like, come on, why aren't we doing this? Even in this 2 minutes, when they don't get the normal reaction, they react with negative emotions, they turn away, they feel the stress of it, they actually may lose control of their posture because of the stress that they're experiencing.
Okay. Okay. I'm here. And what are you doing? Oh, yes. Oh, what a big girl.
It's a little like the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good is that normal stuff that goes on, that we all do with our kids. The bad is when something bad happens, but the infant can overcome it. After all, when you stop the still face, the mother and the baby start to play again. The ugly is when you don't give the child any chance to get back to the good. There's no reparation, and they're stuck in that really ugly situation.
Oh, so everybody take a breath. Who was relieved when the mom started interacting again? I know I always am, even after watching this so many times. But so it showed us, does anybody have anything they want to share about that at all? Okay, so this let us know that young infants have basic building blocks of social cognition in place, and a relationship between facial expression and emotions. We've really learned a lot. And so then thinking about interacting with your youth is how can you let them know that you're listening, that you're tuning into them, and that you're paying attention. And sometimes, again, I think it'd be helpful to think about the times that you've felt really seen and understood, and what was somebody doing that helped you feel that or notice that, and have that experience. And so think about then, how can you do that with your kiddos? And one of the things I do, and I forget now where I came to this, but I try to always light up when my son comes into the room, whether he will engage with me or not. I pause what I'm doing. I pause, put my phone down, or pause a video, or pause the TV, or whatever I'm doing. I give him my attention and I welcome him in. Sometimes I do it through the cat, and I'll tell her, like, "Oh, hey, look, your boy's here," because she loves him. But just finding those ways to, whoops, to attune. So I'm looking at our time. We have 4 minutes left. Let's see. I'm thinking we can talk a little, we can probably do a little bit about empathy, probably carry it over to next week, and we'll carry the developmental stages, developmental tasks of this age and their development over to next week. One of the things with empathy and regulating is that fighting our, holding on to our righting reflex. And so, you know, our kids sometimes get things wrong, or sometimes we'll say things in a way that we don't fully agree with, and we want to correct them. And empathy means you hold that and you listen to them. You listen to their ideas, their priorities, their upsets. You can start to give them information, and you can help support them in decision making. But by listening, it doesn't mean you agree. It's not implied that you agree, but you're giving them space to share. There are lots of different definitions of empathy, but most often it's described as kind of putting yourself in someone else's shoes and letting yourself feel what they might be feeling. And you can make guesses on that. So attuning and empathy Like attuning lets you take in the information, and empathy helps you imagine what that might be feeling like. And then you can make guesses on that. Again, it doesn't mean you agree, but you're listening to understand. I thought this was really helpful. These are some empathy statements. And the other aspect of this is it's not our job to fix it. And so empathy is saying, gosh, I hear you. And wow, that sounds really challenging. Oh, I can see how hard you've worked on this. Or maybe this has been discouraging. Oh, and then you can let it be. You don't have to fix it. You can regulate with them and co-regulate with them. But empathy gives that space to say, I trust you to figure this out. Or I trust you to ask for help if you need it. But I hear how hard this might be. And also it can be exciting, right? We can offer empathy and regulation and co-regulation through feelings that feel good too, that we like to feel. Some of the things that empathy is not, though, it is not a statement of, well, at least it's not this, or at least it was only that. Those are fairly dismissive and they are not empathy. Telling someone that others have it worse than them is not empathy. And trivializing what they're upset about is not attuning or empathy. Why are you upset about that? That's not a big deal. And with our kids, this is a challenging one because we do have so much more wisdom, hopefully, and so much more experience. And we have so many more things that we know about that they're not there yet. And so while something might seem little or trivial to us, or our brain might not even be able to understand, oh my gosh, why are you so upset about this? That's where they are. They don't have those experiences yet. And through empathy, we can help them have those experiences. We can help them then regulate those experiences and learn from those experiences. Does that make sense, or any thoughts about that? Any questions? Doesn't mean you agree. Doesn't mean you won't get a chance to maybe offer some correction, but you have to connect first. So this is a lot of listening. This is that like attuning and empathizing is really a lot of listening and hearing to hold it and listen and support them rather than hearing it to figure out what we're going to say next. Because when we're figuring out what we're going to say next, we are not paying attention to the message that's given to us. So this means generally more time. It means maybe some discomfort. It means maybe just kind of sitting with them in the ugh, because sometimes there's things that we can't help them with. So then we're able to help them be in the ugh and know that they can get through that. And that's a tremendous life skill for them to have. They need to learn and know that they can do hard things. And attuning and empathizing with them helps us teach them that they can do that. So I think let's go ahead and stop there because it is 7:31. But maybe everybody take a deep breath. Shake out anything you might need to. And next week we'll go into the developmental tasks, as well as maybe we'll tackle sleep and technology, or maybe at least sleep. And then the last week we'll talk about being near and technology, something like that. If you have other topics you're interested in, let me get to my there. Please email me, or you can email Shelley, and I can work to add those in because I want this to be helpful for you. And there are, like I just said, there are so many topics around kids and teens that we can look at.
The first class is on the website. I added that in the chat. If you go to the pw4kids.org, my email's there. The previous videos are there. Email me, email Rachel. Yes. So, and we will keep you posted.
Yes.
So thank you all. I'm going to stop recording, but then if you have anything else, go ahead and